Hey guys, welcome back to the Buy Yourself Flowers podcast. Today we're joined by Petra Velzebur,
hmm
psychotherapist, author, TEDx speaker, and someone who is completely changing the conversation around mental health and technology. So here's the thing, most of us are glued to our phones, burning out quietly, and being told to fix it with a face mask. Petra is here to call all of that out, and what we're going to be talking about today is what technology is actually doing to our minds and what real self-care looks like and how you can start investing in yourself when you don't fully know who you are yet. So we have so much to get into, so let's get started. So you've built one of the most you've built yourself into one of the most recognized voices in the mental health industry globally, but the road to get there was anything but straightforward. So could you, to start off with, take us back to the beginning and tell us a bit about where you came from and how you got to where you are today?
Of course. Thank you for having me. So the beginning, I know I said I'm Dutch, I have a Dutch passport, but I was born and raised in a religious cult. So I actually grew up in Brazil, India, Russia, Kenya, like all over Europe. It's funny these days, if I tell people I was raised in a commune, they sort of get excited and they want to hear more because they're like, "Ooh, we're so lonely. Like, where is this place?" But if I kind of tell them the other version, which is that it was a cult, then they maybe lean back a little bit. But the thing is, both things were true. So we lived in community, we had lots of music, we traveled a lot, there was lots of exciting things, and then we didn't go to school. That, we thought the world was going to end. There were lots of kind of toxic people that were running the show, and eventually, as I became a teenager myself, I kind of realized that if you didn't follow the rules, bad things happened, and if you weren't part of it and if you weren't doing things right, then you get punished in quite cruel and unreasonable ways. So for me as a teenager, you talk about like finding yourself and stuff. Like I didn't have a blueprint beforehand. Like nobody asked me when I was a kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I know that can be a tricky question because sometimes we feel forced to answer that question. But for me, I ended up, I guess, leading a double life for a little while. So on the one hand, I was being really good and playing by the rules. And on the other hand, I was spiraling into drugs and alcohol and addiction and all sorts of things, just trying to find myself and figure out who I was. So when I left the cult when I was 22, and I left very much because the double life just kind of came to a head. I was like partying with my now ex, but he's the father of my two children. And we partied hard. And kids, this is not the foundation for a healthy relationship. Let me just say that out loud. But I fell pregnant with my son within 3 months of partying hard and moved to London. But what was interesting was when I moved to London, I'm now 23. I have a baby. I live in an apartment with my boyfriend and his best mate. So that was the setup, right? And they go to work, and I'm left with this kid. And I've never, like, I didn't really know what loneliness meant because I was always living with people. I have five siblings. We always were, in all sorts of things. So I then spiral into addiction, depression, like my own mental health stuff, and have to then hit my own rock bottom in order to start my own education, take responsibility for my life, and for kind of doing what I could to stop the cycle of generational trauma kind of going on to my kids, right? Which is a whole topic in itself. But then I guess leading into mental health and technology, I worked in youth mental health. I managed a telephone counseling service for young people. I worked with kids who'd been kicked out of school. Like that was the start of my work. And then I moved into employee well-being, and I got kind of frustrated that people were telling other people what to do, but not necessarily doing it themselves. And that's what led me to quit my job and then kind of take the leap and start this whole thing. And then I wrote a book on digital well-being, which I know is part of the conversation today. And part of my, I guess, experience is, of course, the research I did, but also addiction. Like I'm 16 years sober. My knowledge of mental health, all of that is kind of rammed into like, how do we adapt it to the world we're in now? So a lot there, but that's the origin story.
That is so interesting. I don't think we've ever had
I
someone
agree.
with such a
Wow.
diverse background. Come on.
Wow.
Yeah, what inspiration, honestly. But in your TED talk, you talk about how easy it is to blame our struggles on everything around us, like our environment, other people, and the system in general. But you argue that real change starts like within us. So for a teenager who genuinely feels like everything is against them, the world is kind of plotting against them, how do you say that without it sounding like just get over it, basically?
I mean, part of that is the journey of being a teenager and moving into adulthood, right? Is that feeling of being a bit lost and a bit overwhelmed and, not quite knowing what the rules are, feeling a bit embarrassed or trying to fit in. And I think we sometimes get that very normal experience a little bit confused with labels that are very quickly kind of put on us these days. Like, I have depression, I have an eating disorder, I have OCD. And of course, those are valid and they have their place. But there's this middle place, I think, where we can get a little bit confused with all the layers of things that are going on. And so for me, the question that I'll ask my young people who are now, 20 and 22, is, well, what's one small thing that's in your control? Or how can you do some research yourself to understand how your physical health affects your mental health? Like, if you're in a dark room for 12 hours and you ordered food in and you drank last night and you've scrolled for the last 8 hours, of course your mental health's a little bit messed up, you
Yeah,
know?
of
So it's
course.
like
Yeah.
helping people understand the conditions that are more in your control than you think. And I guess I personally really know what it feels like to, I guess you would call it, have a victim mindset,
Yeah.
where I was like, my parents didn't send me to school. There was traumatizing things. I don't fit in. Like, it's their fault, it's their fault, it's their fault. And we all have a version of that, right? Like the bully affected me or the online thing or whatever, how I see myself. But actually the minute you get this unlock of like, okay, if it's on me, if everything is my responsibility, and it's a transition because you're young people where parents do have responsibility, but then eventually your life is your responsibility. So for me, the challenge is always what's one small thing that's in your control? What are the things that you can do to move your life forward and how you feel? Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely.
It's tough though.
Yeah, for
It's like,
sure.
but I always talk about like billions of dollars and pounds are being spent to compete for our attention and advertised to us.
Yeah.
And young people's brains are still, developing and all of this, and you're just like being told all this stuff. There's so much noise. So to kind of step away from it or to create a different narrative is hard these days.
I guess I kind of have a follow-up question to that. Do you think that there's kind of a lack of self-awareness because I think with mental health there's a difference between like positive awareness and negative awareness of kind of feeding these kind of diagnoses so that people can self-diagnose in a way. Do you think young people in our generation kind of lack that awareness of positive and the negative awareness?
Well, what's interesting is the opportunity for awareness is so much greater than it used to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
Because you can watch a professional talk about the nuance of borderline personality disorder on a TikTok. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you couldn't do that back in the day. So the information is there, but I think the ability to listen to our own body and our own mind and have some critical thinking to apply stuff to ourself, that's a little bit missing. Because if
Yeah.
we always have this authority figure telling us, oh, those symptoms mean this, or those symptoms mean that, or you guys might never even learn or start that learning, that ability to decide for yourself. Oh,
Yeah.
the doctor told, and I'm glad you brought up my TED talk because in that talk, I talk about going to the doctor and all this stuff is going on around it. And I just have 8 questions to answer that is like, have you had low mood for 2 weeks or more? Have you had this, right? Antidepressants, go. And I left more confused than when I went in because I was like, do I have a chemical imbalance? Like what? And it was so contextual
Yeah.
to the life I was living and my thinking and my background and
Yeah.
so a lot there.
Mm.
Thank you for that answer.
I guess just following on from that, like teenagers, we live our lives through technology, but then we're also told that our phones are like ruining us. So what's the difference between using technology and then being used by it? And how can you kind of tell which one we're doing? And I guess you talk about that in your book as well. So what would you kind of say to that?
How old are you guys?
17.
17.
17. So can I flip that first and ask you, like, when do you know that your phone is using you rather than you using it?
I think,
Um,
oh, sorry, do you want to go?
there you go. It's fine.
I think there comes to a point where I'm deep into a doom scroll and I'm being fed so much information, and it can be like when you're in the doom scroll mindset, I think it's a very passive thing. Like it's a really easy
Yeah,
motion of just scrolling up and just getting fed information that, first of all, is not 100% true. Second of all, really, really easy to get influenced by it. Like I have noticed throughout my teenagehood how easy it has been to be influenced by other people, especially online, talking about their mental health issues, talking about like specific things they did as if that was going to help me in my individual case. Um, so yeah, I think in those moments when you're deep into the doom scroll, it's very easy to get used by technology. Um,
yeah,
but I think what lacks is the fact that we're not really guided into how we should use it productively, you know?
yeah, I agree. I think for me, I feel used by technology when I'm using it to like escape something, because in a sense I'm kind of, if I feel really stressed or I feel really nervous about something, I quickly press on, I don't know, TikTok, and then I'm just like scrolling for an hour. And
Yeah.
then when I come off it, I'm like, oh wow, I'm kind of giving my power away. Like I'm choosing not to work through the moment, but avoid it instead. So that is like a loss of like autonomy for me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So emotional numbing is like as soon as something gets hard, it's like the easiest way to just blank out for a little bit. Of course, the feelings of whatever happened, whatever you're uncomfortable with, they don't just disappear, they just go down a little bit. And then we have like, I'm so anxious. And you're like, of course, you've been suppressing feelings for ages, and every time something's hard, you're avoiding it, you know? And so for me, it's like, how do we actually need to acknowledge and feel certain things in the moment in order to process them so they don't stack up into things like anxious feelings or depression. Also, you guys don't always realize that anxiety is normal. Anxiety means you're living. Anxiety means that you're doing something new. Maybe you're at uni, maybe you're at college, maybe you've got your first boyfriend or your first, whatever. It's all the firsts. You're supposed to be anxious. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so when we throw on a disorder, it can make us feel a bit stuck because then we're just like, "Oh, I just have this thing. There's nothing I can do about it, right?"
Yeah.
So I guess it's having some agency, learning to listen to your own body. And nobody's gonna, I was curious what you said about like no one's giving you guidance about how to use this stuff. Does that feel super true? Like, because often like when teachers or parents want to give guidance, what do they know, right? And it's true, like it's moving so quickly. You guys are the digital natives. What's the kind of guidance you would hope for?
To be honest, I think it's the use of especially TikTok has become so widespread, and I think its impacts are just kind of, I mean, unless it got banned nationwide, I don't think it could really get improved, you know? So I guess what I mean by guidance is kind of like, in a sense, TikTok is a relief platform, like Sabrina was saying. But I wish like if it had never been introduced in my life, I think, or in our lives, you know, I think that's the kind of guidance I meant, like a kind of like systematic restructuring. Yeah.
Love it. I love it. So there's the systemic thing, which is how the governments, how AI is being used, how TikTok's a business platform that's advertising to you. And some of that is being handled in certain countries, like they're banning phones in schools, or they're noticing like the suicides, the self-harm, like the really terrible things that some
Yeah.
young people are being affected by. But also from my book and my perspective, I'm like, okay, the system is as it is, but what bit is in your control? How do you want to feel? How do you want to live? How do you want to engage with the world? And actually reminding people that you have a little bit more agency than you think. And this might feel really difficult at your age when like the number one thing that biologically you want is to fit in. And that's like just how it goes, right?
Yeah.
And so if TikTok's the place that everyone is, or Snapchat's the place that everyone is, I'm going to be there, right? And so it's not necessarily about removing you from it and being like, no phones, no this, no that, because then you'll be like an outsider and then you will be depressed, you know?
Yeah.
Um, I do think it's helping you guys learn about nervous system regulation. So like every time you do a little short and you get a little dopamine rush, you also get a little crash, right? Or you don't know the difference between real danger, like fight or flight, like I gotta run, or someone's stolen something, I gotta do something, right? And a scary TikTok or like a threatening, like misogynistic post, you know? And so these things affect our body in a way that then shows up in how we feel or our health issues or all the things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like knowing what's going on in your body. And then there are little movements that are showing up these days. I feel like the pendulum is swinging where like there's the offline club, there's these events that are like phone free or people are self-organizing stuff.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't know, any other guidelines you wish you had? Because there's
I think
boundaries, yeah, go ahead.
I think a lot of the guidance that makes young people be really dismissive is guidance about like the time spent using social media rather than, you know, um, how you should feel about it emotionally. Like if people say, oh, only spend an hour on it per day on, I don't know, TikTok, I think the problem isn't the time that you're spending. Well, I guess the time you're spending on it is a lesser problem than how you actually feel and the emotions that arise from it, because that's actually the issue. Because if that wasn't such an issue, then the time that you spend on it wouldn't matter because it wouldn't be so disruptive emotionally. So I feel like the guidance should be more about, how to, when you see different types of content, how to, um, not how to feel about it, but how to kind of be aware of your emotions more. I think that would be
Oh,
helpful.
I completely agree with you. And I think probably both things are true in the sense where, like I said earlier, if you're on TikTok for 8 hours and you never see anyone in real life and you never have, hugs or eat together or any of those things that mean that you are physically connected, you're gaming, you're like whatever it is, right? There's a knock-on effect on your social skills, your loneliness, your feeling like you don't, like everything is hard, your anxiety levels. So that's the thing, right? But you're right. I think if it's just like only do it for 2 hours, you're just like, oh, I can't even do it, right? I mean, I'm an addict, so I've got like an app called Screen Zen. I've got to kind of double down on what, it blocks me. And the way it's set up is like I have to do 1,000 steps before I have access. So every
Oh,
thousand
wow.
steps, I get 10 minutes access, right? And so like I have to do all this stuff because it is hard. I'm not good at it. And every time, like you said, I'm stressed, like maybe I've had a breakup or like a stressful day at work or something. My God, that's when it just goes through the roof, right? Because you're just like, oh, and you're like, oh, self-soothe, cookies and TikTok or whatever. Um, it sounds amazing. But the thing about how it makes you feel, so having real intention about who you follow and what you're watching, like it's you setting up your algorithm to work for you. Because it's interesting, when I am feeling really well, my algorithm is on point. It shows me weightlifting because I quite like working out and exercise, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
all the weightlifters that are like going for strength and fun rather than thin, skinny, and like I'm better than you, right? So it's that kind of thing. And then it's like personal development stuff. So like things I want to learn about or whatever. If I've been stressed or something's not quite right, which happens to everyone, even the experts, right? My algorithm will switch within, let's say, 3 or 4 hours. Like if it's like Friday night, I'm like, oh, life, and you just do the things, right? My algorithm switches, and it switches to 911 emergency calls and to children being rescued from abusive homes. Like I'm not recommending this, but like for me, that if I'm like, oh, every video is now that, like I gotta take a step back, right? Do you guys have a sense of like what your main algorithms are? Do you know that you can set those up to work for you better and follow things that make you feel better rather than shit?
Sam, do you want to go?
I think this is so interesting because a while back, I interviewed, or we had someone else on the podcast, and she was talking about how actually we're in much less control of what comes on our feed than we think. And it's interesting because you're kind of offering the counterpoint to that, where you're saying that your mood does actually predict what's on the algorithm. So that's interesting to hear another perspective.
People have two or three themes that
Oh
are
yeah.
on repeat in their algorithm. And I find
Yeah.
it interesting to ask people because somebody will say, these are adults, right? Oh, I get this like furniture design for boats, like super niche, niche, niche. My algorithm is not showing me that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
they'll be like, oh, it's this nerdy little thing that I'm into, and then the news or something. And some people it's like fashion and puppies and whatever, right? And so usually
Yeah.
there's like, so my theme is workouts and personal development when I'm good. And then when I'm not good, it's like celebrity gossip, everyone who looks
Yeah.
better than me,
Yeah,
all the like people that are
yeah,
so fit that I will never attain to it.
yeah.
That's what I'm.
Yeah. I
It's
think
all so
no, go.
it's always that, and then I think some of the like there's a really specific type of TikTok. I think Sam will know what I'm talking about, but when
Yeah.
I'm in a bad mood, like it's it's always like a dark screen or a landscape that's really dark and waves crashing or whatever, and then they
Yeah.
have the text that like tries to analyze something psychologically but in a really dark way. It's like but what if I'll never be as good as her or something. But it's always
Yeah.
just random videos like that, and they'll
Like
just
that.
come up. And I also think the
Yeah.
TikTok algorithm is so speedy and changes so fast
Yeah,
and
that's true.
picks up on exactly the mood that I'm in. And that's what's really scary to me. And I always notice it, and I'm always a bit freaked out by it.
Yeah. I think, yeah, when I'm not in the best mood, the things that I get are like clavicular and like looks, the kind of looks max manosphere thing. I get a load of that. And then I get
And how does that make you? Go ahead, carry on.
and then I get what is always describing, but I get loads of things about like breakups and like, your
Yeah,
partner cheating because like I'm in a relationship. So like yeah, it's just really unsettling to get all of that kind of thing. Yeah, it's interesting how it shifts quickly.
So quickly.
Yeah.
And also the tactic, like if you want less of something, it usually like is like, oh, I'm being deprived, like I have to have this restriction on my life, like only 1 hour. But for me, it's also about going, what do I want more of? Like starting with that and going, I want to take more steps a day, or I want to have better friendships, or I want to spend time with someone, or do this hobby or sport or whatever. And so, like, if you have some goals that are connected to like in real life connection, that's what for good mental health, we need meaning and connection.
yeah,
Not everyone's talking about that. And so that's what I highlighted in the TED Talk. So what brings you meaning? What makes you feel joyful? And if you don't know, you've got to experiment,
yeah,
right? Right? And
yeah,
so I
Yeah.
I love technology. It makes my siblings live all over the world and we can FaceTime for free. Like you didn't used to be able to do that, people. Yeah. Used to have like every minute it was costing you money to talk to someone.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
what does that sound like for you guys? Like just what do I want more of, not just what do I want less of when it comes to this stuff?
In terms of strictly technology or in terms of my mental health in general?
I think technology's impact on your mental health.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's the same with me. My family lives completely around the world, so that is, you know, calling people who I haven't talked to in person is the best. I'm so grateful that I have that option. And I think this might like whenever I have an exam period, because the UK, obviously the system works through GCSEs, A levels, end of years. So whenever that happens, I always just delete every single social media I have on my phone. And I notice my focus going up like exponentially in comparison to when I do have it. And I think the bad mindset that I have is that when I finish my exams, I'll tell myself, okay, well, my reward is getting TikTok again, for example, which I mean, it's understandable, but it's also, I don't want to have that mindset. So I'm trying to train myself to like fully leech off of, TikTok, use Instagram a lot less. And I think what's most important for me, I'm a very social person, so going out and seeing people face to face is the most important thing. So yeah, that's kind of how I just like I try and be as self-aware as I can be about how much time I spend on these social media and how much time I should be spending off of it. Hobby, seeing people. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
dialing stuff up.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think we're quite similar, and it's not, I think, like, teenagers generally, it's not nice to have that attitude of like, you feel like you're leeching off social media, or it's kind of in control of your well-being. That's something that um I want to kind of sever that idea. But I think what you're speaking about, in terms of creating that kind of connection, um, reminds me of one of my favorite quotes, which is like, you need to create more than you can like consume. So that, I think, is kind of a mantra for like my relationship with social media, because like Azor was saying, I want most of my interactions to be in person with people, with my friends, um, having my own experiences rather than watching someone else's experiences, or, someone recounting someone else's, and then it's like a whole cycle. I don't, I think it's better to have, um, to create those experiences yourself. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at things.
I love it. I love it. And as time goes on, more evidence you have that when you do that stuff, you often feel better, or you become more confident, or all the things that you kind of want to step into as you then go to work and like life progresses.
Yeah.
And then that takes away this like mental health is just a fixed thing, you know? I'm curious. I'm sorry I'm interviewing you guys, but you're just super interesting. Uh, I think self-help like influencers, it's a bit over the top for some of us, you know? So like if you think that my mental health is now I'm required to wake up at 5, meditate, go for a run, do yoga, just write down gratitude, do affirmations. No wonder you guys are stressed. You know what I mean? Like, how does that feel? Because that's even like good influences, sort of, right? But does
Yeah.
that ever add to the like, oh my God, I'm not even doing that right?
I was actually going to ask you this question because it's
Okay.
like bubble bath well-being, right?
Oh,
So
yes.
the well-being advice that's aimed at young people is very much like self-care, do a face mask, go out for a run, wake up at 5. So these really extravagant things just to help your. I think a lot of it is also focused on physical health. Is That's what I was going to point out, but in your opinion, what does self care in mental health actually look like in comparison to this physical health or these extravagant strategies that we're being told?
So your mental health and self-care should be personal, right? So it's not just a formula that everyone follows. There's some principles, but at different stages of your life, different things are going to be the most effective. So when I had 2 babies and was doing my master's degree at night and I was working full time, like I was trying to make up for lost time and catch up, right? I was not having bubble baths and lighting candles and yet doing yoga. I wasn't. Like if I could get to sleep sober and get my work done and do be an adequate parent, like that was the best I could do
Yeah.
during that time. But it wasn't sustainable forever, right? You can't do that shit forever, right? And so later on, especially as I was getting sober, certain practices were really good to help me get out of a victim mindset. Like I had to train my brain to not be a victim of my past and be like, oh, there's things I can do. So for me, writing down three things I was grateful for was really useful at that time because it like helped me develop new thinking in my brain to look for what was good instead of what was bad, right? So this is what I think. And then moving your body is the best way to release stress. It just is, like to prevent burnout and all these things. But it doesn't have to be an ultra marathon. It feels like you're not doing enough if you're not training for one of those, you know? It could be
Yeah.
10-minute stretching in your room before you go to bed. It could be going for a walk, getting your steps up, right? So again, this is about agency and kind of going, what are the goals that I want to set for myself? And then how do I create a bit of like use your friends as accountability? Like, hey, I want to walk twice a day, or I'm worried that self-care for young women is very connected to beauty, you know, and
Yeah.
that worries me a little bit. Like, oh, it's the Korean face mask and it's this
Yeah.
makeup and it's this hair thing. And like for me, I'm like that none of that has to do with self-care. If it makes you feel good and if it makes you feel confident, great. But there's this real shadow side to like, I won't feel good unless I've done an 18-step face care routine, you know? I'm
Yeah.
like, you guys are young, you have the best skin you're ever gonna have, you know? Yeah, I get a bit worried about that. But again, what's one thing that's in my control? What can I do to look after my mental health?
Yeah.
If you have those two questions in mind, what, and you have to come up with it. It's not, you know,
Yeah.
um, I think we'd be in a better place.
Yeah.
I think it feels almost like performative. I see these videos sometimes on my feed, and it's just an aesthetic video in the background, and it's then a list of it's like matcha, yoga, 10K before 12 noon, and it's like a list of like 10, like run a marathon at 1 a.m. like
Yeah, yeah,
like all
yeah.
this crazy.
You're like, and
And
I'm in school. Like, how am I supposed to do all this?
yeah,
And it's always a timetable as well of the day,
Yeah.
yeah,
booked by the minute.
yeah, or it's like a video and someone's Google Calendar is like completely full.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, it's interesting how that's kind of idolized and that's seen as like productive. It's almost like self-care's kind of been turned into like um something that needs to be,
A tick
yeah,
list.
yeah, like a checklist. And I was actually talking to my friend about this last night. Doing ultra marathons, is that kind of performative, or is that actually, you know, to, understand your thoughts and be alone with yourself and work on things. So I
Depends
think
who
there's a
you
whole
are.
culture of, sorry.
It depends who you are. It
Yeah,
could be
exactly.
all of those things, but it might not be.
Yeah, because like there's certain influencers like the David Goggins of the fitness community that are really advocates for like extreme fitness, and it's really interesting how that can kind of diffuse down into people like myself and like just innocent like people that just want to do fitness. It doesn't need to be, not everything you do needs to be at a certain high level, and I think that's something that is interesting because that's how self-care can feel sometimes. Um,
Yeah. And when it comes to all the research about technology, they say that we've lost the art of the healthy element of daydreaming and being bored. Like that's the best ingredients for creativity, resilience, all these things. But you just have to see someone on a train or standing in a queue and phones are out. Like, oh, it's uncomfortable to stand here alone, you know. I will say I quite like David Goggins, and I'm not saying that as like everyone should. But what I like is he has a no bullshit approach. And so for some people, when they're so stuck in a victim mindset, that's the voice that might help them to be like, get up, move your ass, do stuff, right? Sorry, I keep
Definitely.
swearing. Right? And so for some people, that's exactly the angle that you need and want. But that doesn't mean it's a universal truth or for all, or means you have to run ultra marathons in the desert or whatever he does.
Yeah.
Um, but I sometimes like listening to the, stop feeling sorry for yourself. Like, what do you want to do? How do you show up? How do you take responsibility? But it's like, how do I take responsibility? It's not how do I do everything someone else did who has a different story to me, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I see behind you The
Okay.
Beginning of You, released in 2023, I believe. People our age, we don't really know who you is yet. So, like, since writing the book, have you noticed any shifts in like the challenges that young people are bringing to you and the pressures that teenagers are bringing that are different to what you've kind of written about in your book?
So you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but the things I'm seeing is like when I did my TED Talk, it was at a university, and the amount of young people who were university students who came up to me afterwards and said, I've been told I have to be on antidepressants for the rest of my life. I've been told I have to have this medication. I didn't know that I could have some choice around that and that it's not always the best option long term, right? So there's this real confusion about what mental health actually is for lots of people. And this idea, they almost introduce themselves before they say their name, they say, I have anxiety or I have depression to me because I'm a mental health person, right? And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, how's this locked into your introduction? You know what I mean? Like, and we want to use language that's like, I'm feeling anxious today. So valid. Does that mean you have anxiety as if it's fixed forever? You know? So I'm feeling really sad today. Super normal emotion that we all have, you know? So there's something about the maybe overwhelm of information leading us to diagnose ourselves and then misinformation leading us to be medicated instead of go outside. You know, I'm making it quite simple, but I think those are some of the challenges. And then, like, statistically, there's a bit of nervousness about, like, you know, how do I choose a career path because AI is disrupting everything? Like, I don't even know. What do I do? And then even I've heard about, like, there's so many problems in the world or like challenges in like you know, war and, you know, scary things that are going on. And so usually young people's identity has a bit of activism in it. That's the stage of life where you want to fight for a cause, you want to do something. But I'm getting a sense from lots of young people that like almost a hopeless, like there's too many things. Like, what do I even do? Like, how do I fight for something when there's 80,000 things or climate change feels like no one's listening, you know? So there's
Yeah.
this almost like,
Hopelessness. Yeah.
yeah, hopeless, like frustration or apathy, but because of it's information overload. Those
Yeah.
are some of the things I'm noticing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for all of your responses. That this was so, so interesting. Thank you so much for coming on.
So as
Yeah.
much as I have some expertise and experience, you're individuals that are bringing your own stuff and have talked to lots of people. So it's been super fun
Yeah.
chatting to you guys.
Okay.
You too.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much. I really
much.
enjoyed this.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.